Hey everybody, it's Jason Creel and you're watching A Lawn Care Life. Today I want to talk to you about a very important topic in the lawn care business, one I've talked about before, but something I've gotten a lot better at lately is how to collect money from your lawn care customers. Now we can talk about how to collect money from just all your customers in general, but specifically talking about the ones that sometimes are more difficult to pay. And I had a good experience yesterday collecting from a customer. Just want to share from my own experience and some of the things I've learned and how what I'm using to collect money and some options for you. Let's talk about it. Okay, I don't know about for you, but one of the most frustrating parts of being a lawn business is doing the work and doing a good job and then having difficulty collecting the payment. And you know, it does happen from time to time where you actually don't collect the payment, and that's incredibly frustrating. Now let me share with you something that got my attention a few months ago. I spoke with a secretary from a large lawn care company, and she told me that in their company that there are 2 or 3 people who spend hours regularly in the afternoon calling for past due invoices. So you're talking about the amount of time that they're spending and paying somebody to try to collect. Now this company has thousands and thousands of customers, okay, so it makes sense that there's going to be some past due accounts. But I got to thinking about that for me, and I was like, is that what I want to pay somebody to do in the future, is to sit by the phone and call people and ask them to pay the bill they should have already paid? No, obviously it's not. So here's what I'm doing in my business, and I want to talk to you about some other things, options you can do. So let's start with what not to do. In my opinion, this is a mistake, and this is what I used to do. If I cut somebody's grass, let's say for the month of May, I would wait until the end of the month and send them a bill, and then they had 30 days to pay that bill. So if I cut your grass on May the 2nd, technically you had until June the 30th to pay that. It's almost 2 months, and during that time I may have provided 7 or 8 lawn care services for that person before I get paid. Now that usually was not the case. It usually worked out fine, but you're putting yourself at such a disadvantage to the customer. I mean, you're giving them way too much freedom, way too much leeway, and that is a mistake in my opinion. Not only that, I mean, the cash flow problem becomes an issue if you're waiting 2 months to get paid. Now someone would pay right away, that sort of thing. Wasn't everybody's waiting 2 months. Very few actually waited 2 months, but still that was perfectly within the terms that I allowed for as a business, and that's a big mistake. So I've heard all different ideas of how people go about this from a mowing standpoint. Let's talk about 2 like super easy ways if you really don't want to ever be late. You can get a credit card on file for all your customers. Okay, this is an option. It's more normal option than it would have been even 5 years ago. I still think you're going to scare some customers off. There's some older people who don't do that at all. They still want to pay with a check. So you got to understand that you're probably going to lose some customers. That may be worth it in your mind. You also have the added expense of the credit card fees. I mean, that's, you know, in a way part of doing business. You can put that back into your price if you want or whatever, but I mean, it is a fact that you're going to pay money in credit card fees. But by doing this, you almost never miss a payment unless some reason the card was declined and you didn't catch it or something, you know, and you might even charge the card right before the service, and if it goes through, okay, we perform the service. Other option that's less technical, I guess, is you just make them pay right on the spot, you know, like leave a check for you kind of deal, and that can work too. If you have somebody that's difficult in collecting payment from, that's another option you can use. The other thing I've seen people doing is they'll send the invoice out on the 1st of the month, okay, for the upcoming month, and it's due by the 15th. So something like that, you know, let's say that you're cutting their yard every week. Even then, you're only 2 weeks in before they're paying you. So that kind of puts more of the leverage back in your favor and not putting it all on the customer side. Kind of a halfway option would be billing them in the middle of the month and it's due at the end of the month. So, you know, again, that's much better than the old system I was using where you bill them at the end of the month and give them a whole nother month to pay. So either of these options would be far superior to what I was doing. And you can use somewhat of a combination of the options. You know, you can really push for the credit card on file if that's what you want to do. But for some of it, if some customers give you pushback, then you say, okay, well, you know, here's our other options. You can leave a payment at the time of the service, or we're going to bill you on the 1st of the month and it's due by the 15th of the month, something like that. Now for me, I'm doing the weed control and fertilization thing, and so what I do is I go to their house, and at the time of the service, I have some people that have a credit card on file, but for most people, I hang an invoice on the door in a plastic bag. There's a self-addressed envelope where they can mail a check in, or there's also instructions where they can pay their bill online with a credit card. I have about half the people pay with a check, about half pay with a credit card. It's fine with me either way. I do obviously incur some credit card fees, but also get a lot of tips for people leaving me tips on their credit card. So that helps as well to sort of offset the credit card fees. Now for me, like in the weed control, I mean, I'm only going to their house every 6 to 8 weeks. So by the time I do one service, I mean, they have 6 to 8 weeks to pay. Not that I'm going to give them that long before I notify them that they're late, but I'm only one service behind is what I'm saying. Where mowing, you in 6 to 8 weeks, like I said, you might be 6 to 8 services behind, and you might have a much more substantial amount of money. But let's talk about the situations when they don't pay or they become difficult to pay, and what to do in those situations, because that's what can get really frustrating. I learned this first or second year in the lawn biz. I gave the guy the benefit, like I was talking to you, you know, bill him at the end of the month, keep mowing the next month. And I think I even gave him more leeway than that, because you know what? He came out, talked to me, it was all friendly. Yeah, let's work together. He had paid one bill before. Usually when they pay one, I just assume they're gonna keep paying. But he got me. He got me for about, I don't know, it might have been $250 or something. And one of those deals where you call them, they don't respond, actually go to their house, and somebody else answers the door. He's like, oh no, I don't know what you're talking about. We don't owe any money. You know, it just, at that point, it's like, what do you do? We can talk about that, what do you do in this video. But it was a situation where they were renting the house, you know, which probably should have been a sign to me that there's not an ideal client. Not trying to discriminate against renters, but sometimes people are renting because they don't have the credit or the money or whatever to buy a house. So it should have been a red flag in my mind. I gave them way too much leniency and I got burned. Well, since then, you know, I might lose 1 or 2 customers a year that doesn't pay. But this past year I had a really good year on collecting, and I think because I've gotten more strict on my policies on collecting payments. So here's what I'm doing and some options for you. Okay, this may sound like common sense, but what I have found through detailed research, meaning experience of being in the lawn business, is when somebody is late paying you one time, chances are they are going to be consistently late. The same people are late every single time. Now occasionally you get somebody that, you know, is paid on time, and then they're late one time. No big deal. You notify them. They're so apologetic and embarrassed about being late. Here's a tip, please forgive me, I can't believe it happened. And you know, I'm not worried about those people. But the people who are late, you text them, call them, email them, they pay. Next month, late, text, call, email, they finally pay. Next month, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Okay, it's a habit. That's what these people are defined by. They are not going to change anytime soon. So here's one thing I've done. When they show themselves to be that way, like, let me give you an example. I had a guy, I did the very first treatment. He's telling me, hey, if you can make my lawn look good, I can get you so many yards in this neighborhood because I know everybody kind of deal. I said, okay, sounds good. So I go do the first lawn treatment. 3 months later, I got paid for that treatment. 3 months later after the first treatment. Now, because it's been 3 months, I mean, I've done skipped the next lawn treatment, you know, which means his yard's not gonna look as good. I'm starting to skip treatments because I ain't got paid. So what do you do in those situations when somebody finally does pay you, but it took forever? Well, for me, I switch them over prepay or nothing at that point. Okay, you can prepay for the year. You can leave payment at the time of the service. I will email you or text you a link to the invoice and you can prepay it that way. But I am not doing anything until you get paid. Now, and this was one offense, one time, and he was late, 3 months late. That's it. No more second chances. So that is not being unreasonable. This one step that I've taken, just being more firm with the customer, quit giving them the benefit of the doubt, has helped me tremendously. And just to be honest with you, has reduced my personal level of anxiety. I hate when the customers don't pay. It makes me so angry, and I do not like chasing money. So me doing this and saying, you don't pay on time, pay up front or go away, I don't care, I really don't care, has been a tremendous joy to me. I love it. I love that some of my customers who didn't pay are no longer my customers. I love that. And I also love that when I enforce this on maybe 10 customers, that, you know what, approximately 7 of the 10, you know, about 70%, and I'm just making up numbers here, but I mean, I think it was about 10 that I've kind of switched over to the prepay method, and about 7 of those are now prepaying. They didn't want to lose me. Okay, now I could have went somewhere else, you know. I'd say, okay, prepay. They say, okay, I'll leave some cash for you, I'll leave you a check, I'll pay for the year, yeah, send me an invoice, I'll pay it up front. You know, like, they want to keep the service, and they have came over to my terms, and that has been fantastic. The other 3, I text them, give them their options, you can prepay, never hear back from them, whatever. I take them off the list, they're gone, and I don't miss them one bit. Awesome move on my part. I'm so happy. You should do the same thing. Let me talk to you about one story that happened to me just yesterday. So I'm getting close to 500 customers in my business, and I told my wife, I said, I got 2 that are not paying, okay? I've weeded out some, you know, 2 out of 500, not quite 500, but it is not bad, but I don't like having 2. I want it to be 0. Well, one of them, I kept messaging and texting and emailing, and I finally got a payment from them about a week ago. I said, okay, that's his last chance. He's switched over to the prepay plan, because here's the problem. You know what? I was in that person's neighborhood just the other day doing yards. He hadn't paid, so I skipped him, not because I hadn't texted him, messaged him, emailed him, whatever, and he don't pay. Well, now I'm supposed to make a special trip back over there just to do that 1 yard because he didn't pay. And you know what? In the weed control thing, it's like, timing is important. I need to get this application down soon, or your yard is going to look terrible. And then what they think, oh, my yard looks terrible, you're not doing a good job. I was like, no, you didn't pay your bill on time, so we skipped you, and now your yard looks terrible. Anyway, I can fix his yard, whatever. It's just, it's frustrating when you have to make a separate trip to a neighborhood because the person didn't pay. So I got paid for him, put him on the prepay plan. But what else happened yesterday? So I had 1 customer left who I've texted multiple times, emailed, left voicemails, called him from a separate phone number. I thought, he's screening my number, I'm gonna call him from a different number. That didn't work. Sometimes that does work, but it didn't work because I want to talk to him. Well, I left him 1 message that was fairly direct. After a nice message, I said, listen, you owe me the money for the lawn service. I need to hear from you that your intention is to pay me. Please call me back and let me know that, yes, I intend to pay, I just can't right now, or whatever. If they'll just tell you that, that'd be great, you know, but of course he don't call back. Well, here's what happened. Yesterday I'm riding around and I'm just going to a yard, not really paying attention, and there's that customer's yard, and just so happens that he's pulling up in the driveway as I speak. And I thought, there he is. He pulled up in his truck. I pulled into a side road, turned around, whipped back around there, and got back in his driveway before he closed the door. And he comes walking out. He says, hey, Lawn Pros, right? Yeah, Mr. Lawn Pro, how's it going? Yeah, what's going on, man? How you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, I owe you some money, don't I? And I'm like, yeah, you owe me some money, all right, man. Yeah, it makes me so mad because he acts like, yeah, don't I owe you some money? It seems like I remember getting 46 text messages from you. You know, I didn't see him that many, but it's just a point that all of a sudden your buddy, he probably should, I think he shook my hand at least 3 times. He said, I tell you what, he owed me $80 for the 1 treatment. He said, I'm gonna go ahead and pay you $160. You know, his yard had weeds all in it because I had sprayed it this because I had sprayed it lately because he ain't paid me, you know. He's like, you gonna be able to get rid of these weeds? I'm gonna pay you $160. I said, yeah, I can get rid of them, but I don't have the stuff on my truck right now. I have to come back and spray it. But anyway, he went ahead and paid me for the last one plus the next one, which is good. I'm gonna go back and perform the service. He's already paid for it. I'm not trying to take advantage of the customer. But then guess what? And I didn't tell him this in person, but after that, he's gonna get a message that says, hey, from now on, you can prepay or not doing it kind of deal. And I don't care what he does at that point. I mean, I really don't care. But I mean, he act like we were long lost cousins and my best friend, and hey, you're just the greatest. I appreciate what you're doing, and here, let me pay you extra. And do you have this app on your phone? I'll just send you the money that way every time. I'm like, yeah, you can send it that way every time, but it's gonna be before I show up. I can guarantee you that. So sometimes the old face-to-face visit can be a little awkward, but that can be a resort after text messages and all that. Okay. If none of that works, what else you can do is you can actually turn them over to a collection agency. Now, I haven't done this. I know people do it. I think your results of collecting are probably not good at that point. And at that point, it's not really about the money. It's just simply about these people don't pay. It needs to be on their credit report that they don't pay. You know what? If somebody doesn't make their house payment or their credit card payment or their car payment, it needs to be on there to let creditors know this person is not a good person to do business with. Well, the thing is, it should be that way with lawn care companies, you know, because they'll pay those things because they know it'll affect their credit score. But what gets pushed to the bottom of the pile is the lawn bill, because they think, well, that's not going to affect me. So I'm perfectly fine, even though I've never done this, but if that got reported to, you turn over to a collection agency, and if they don't collect, then they can turn it in to the credit bureaus and it reflect on their credit score. At that point, you're obviously not getting the customer back. You don't want the customer back. You may run the risk of getting negative reviews. They say, oh, such and such company turned me into a collection agency. They're terrible. He's a horrible human being. At which point I would simply reply on there with the absolute truth that I gave you multiple opportunities to pay. Unfortunately, after several attempts, we were unable to get contact with you, so we proceeded to the next step. Anyway, you make a decision if that's something you want to do. There's another company out there that I've been in contact with. I never hired them. They take a little more casual approach about it. From what I gather, it's called American Profit Recovery. I always see them at the GIA Expo, but you can look them up. They I'm not endorsing them, I'm just simply informing you about it if you want to talk to them, because I've never dealt with them. But it's something like when you get a larger company and you have a lot of past due accounts, and again, I would try to avoid you from doing that, but if that becomes a situation, you pay them like a flat annual fee, I think, and that allows you so many customers for them to pursue, and they have a system where they send letters and try to collect, and it sort of removes you from it. They try to do it in a nicer way that doesn't burn the relationship. Again, at that point, I don't care if I do business with that customer anymore, but anyway, that's another option you can look into. But let me hear from you guys. I know this is an important issue. It's a very frustrating issue when you're unable to collect what is rightfully owed to you. One of the most frustrating. I'm really glad that I have put more pressure on the customer and I don't give them the leniency anymore. Again, this is just for problem customers. Most customers are great, they pay on time, and if they're late one time, it's no big deal. You remind them, they're apologetic. I'm talking about the ones where you start trying to contact them, they won't reply back to a text message, email, phone call. They're avoiding you, and you get a sense that they're not gonna pay, or they're consistently very late, and it's affecting you as a person and a business. We need to do something different. Let me hear from you. What's your thoughts on this? What's your approach toward this topic of collecting money, both, you know, regular customers and the past due ones? And I hope the video is helpful. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, check out the other videos. I'm Jason Creel. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later. Bye.